Overtraining syndrome, OTS, is often viewed as something that only affects elite athletes pushing their bodies to the absolute edge. But emerging research and clinical observation suggest that recreational runners, especially those juggling life stress, inconsistent recovery, and ambitious goals, are far from immune. In fact, many non-professional runners may be walking a fine line between healthy training and systemic burnout without realizing it. And the consequences aren't just fatigue. They can include long-term hormonal disruption, chronic pain, and months-long performance decline. One of the most persistent myths about overtraining is that it's simply doing too much. But OTS isn't caused by high mileage alone. It results from a mismatch between training stress and recovery over time. That means a recreational runner doing 30 to 40 miles a week can still be at risk if they're not recovering well, sleeping enough, eating properly, or managing life stress. Unlike short-term fatigue or soreness, OTS involves a deeper physiological disruption, altered cortisol levels, impaired nervous system function, immune suppression, and hormonal imbalances that can take weeks or months to correct. What makes OTS particularly insidious is how slowly it creeps in. The early signs, restless sleep, unusual irritability, elevated resting heart rate, or declining enthusiasm for running, can be dismissed as normal stress. Runners may push through, thinking they're just in a slump or need to tough it out. But continuing to train hard under these conditions can eventually erode both performance and well-being. Left unchecked, OTS can lead to persistent low mood, loss of libido, frequent illness, and a near-complete drop in motivation. In severe cases, athletes report needing to stop running altogether for months. Another misconception is that OTS always results from high-volume endurance work. In reality, it often stems from poorly timed intensity. Recreational runners who stack speed workouts, hills, and tempo sessions into a single week, or repeat hard efforts without sufficient rest, can accumulate stress rapidly. Add in poor nutrition, job stress, or lack of sleep, and the body begins to fall behind on recovery. What looks like reasonable mileage on paper can feel overwhelming when other demands go unaccounted for. It's also important to distinguish between overtraining and overreaching. Functional overreaching, short periods of deliberate training stress followed by rest, is a normal and useful part of training adaptation. The problem arises when that rest doesn't come. If the stress continues without recovery, the body enters a chronic state of imbalance and performance drops instead of improving. That's when overreaching tips into full-blown overtraining. Gender, age, and life context all influence susceptibility. Female runners, especially those with low energy availability or irregular cycles, may be particularly vulnerable to the hormonal effects of under-recovery. Older runners may have slower recovery rates and need more rest between sessions. And runners in high-stress jobs or caregiving roles may already be in a stress state before their run even begins. These factors don't always show up in training logs, but they compound the physical load and reduce the body's capacity to adapt. The good news is that OTS is preventable and often reversible if caught early. Paying attention to subtle signals like loss of motivation, prolonged soreness, plateauing pace despite effort, or disturbed sleep can serve as early warnings. Monitoring resting heart rate variability, HRV, mood, and training enjoyment can also help runners spot trends before deeper damage occurs. And perhaps most importantly, accepting that more isn't always better is key. Strategic rest, down weeks, and flexibility in training plans aren't signs of weakness. They're necessary for long-term success. In the running community, there's a cultural tendency to glorify pushing through. But understanding OTS means recognizing when perseverance becomes self-sabotage. For recreational runners who run for health, longevity, or enjoyment, the cost of ignoring recovery can be high and completely counterproductive. Running should add to your life, not deplete it. Respecting the body's need to rest isn't a concession, it's a commitment to staying in the game for the long run.